There's so many things that Cassini has given us in terms of a legacy to explore, Enceladus and the possibility of life.
When Cassini plunged into Saturn's atmosphere in 2017, scientists thought they'd seen everything this ringed beauty had to offer. Years later, cutting-edge quantum AI discovered what human eyes missed: bizarre mathematical patterns embedded in Saturn's clouds that defy natural explanation. Was Cassini witnessing an intelligent presence? Has something been watching us from Saturn all along? And why is everyone trying to keep it secret? A mission beyond expectations. Before we dive into what was discovered, let's remember what Cassini taught us during its remarkable journey. Launched in 1997, the spacecraft was a marvel of human engineering. A bus-sized explorer equipped with 12 scientific instruments designed to study Saturn's complex systems. For over a decade, Cassini revealed Saturn's secrets one by one. It showed us the famous hexagonal storm at Saturn's North Pole, a bizarre six-sided weather pattern larger than Earth that has baffled scientists since its discovery. It captured the stunning beauty of Saturn's rings in unprecedented detail, revealing their complex structures and dynamic nature. Then there were the moons. Titan, with its thick atmosphere and lakes of liquid methane, the only world besides Earth known to have liquid on its surface. Enceladus, an icy world, shooting plumes of water into space from its subsurface ocean, instantly becoming one of the most promising places to search for extraterrestrial life in our solar system. As Cassini's fuel reserves dwindled, NASA made the difficult decision to end the mission with a controlled dive into Saturn, and this would prevent any possibility of the spacecraft crashing into potentially habitable moons like Enceladus and contaminating them with Earth microbes. In its final months, Cassini performed a series of daring dives between Saturn and its innermost ring, a region no spacecraft had ever explored before. These grand finale orbits brought Cassini closer to Saturn than ever before, allowing it to take the highest resolution images of the planet's atmosphere, magnetic fields, and ring structures. The data was stunning, giving us new insights into the age of Saturn's rings and the composition of its atmosphere. Scientists celebrated the wealth of information, processing and archiving the images for future study. But something wasn't right. Small anomalies appeared in some images. Slight distortions, repeating geometric patterns, and unusual symmetry in what should have been chaotic cloud formation. A few scientists noticed these oddities, but lacking context or advanced tools to analyze them properly, dismissed them as camera artifacts or data transmission errors. For years, these peculiar images remained buried in digital archives, their secrets hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right technology to bring them into focus. The overlooked anomalies. When Cassini sent back its final batch of images, the scientific community was primarily focused on the big picture. The grand story of Saturn's composition, the age of its rings, the behavior of its atmosphere. The images themselves were visually stunning. Swirling golden clouds, the delicate structures of the rings, and the ever-changing storms that dominated Saturn's face. But amid the celebration and the flood of data, certain peculiarities went largely unnoticed or underappreciated. Some images contained subtle irregularities, patterns that didn't quite match natural cloud formations, geometric echoes that repeated across different frames, strange symmetrical structures that appeared and disappeared between shots. A handful of sharp-eyed researchers did flag these anomalies in internal reports. One noted how certain cloud patterns maintained perfect geometric consistency despite Saturn's turbulent atmosphere. Another documented unusual pixel distributions that didn't match known camera behaviors or transmission artifacts. A third researcher mapped recurring mathematical ratios in the spacing of certain atmospheric features, ratios that seemed too precise to be random. But without a broader context to place these findings in, each observation remained isolated. Some were attributed to equipment quirks. Others were filed away as interesting but unexplained phenomena. A few were dismissed outright as overactive pattern recognition by tired scientists. After all, humans are known for seeing meaningful patterns in random data. It's called pareidolia, the same psychological phenomenon that makes us see faces in clouds or on the surface of Mars. The scientific community moved on. Research papers about Cassini's more conventional findings dominated journals. Funding shifted to new missions and new targets. The anomalous images were properly archived and timestamped, then largely forgotten as the years passed. Meanwhile, technology continued advancing. quantum computing, once a theoretical possibility, became a practical reality. Artificial intelligence systems evolved from simple pattern recognition to complex analytical tools capable of seeing connections invisible to human observers. And a new generation of researchers less attached to conventional explanations began asking different kinds of questions about our solar system. It was the perfect convergence of forgotten data and new technology, a recipe for discovery that would shake the foundations of our understanding of the cosmos. The quantum breakthrough. By 2025, quantum computing had finally overcome the hurdles that had limited its practical applications. No longer confined to specialized laboratories, quantum AI systems were becoming available to research institutions worldwide, offering unprecedented processing capabilities that traditional computers could never achieve. A private research laboratory specializing in astronomical data analysis acquired one of these systems. Their initial goal was straightforward: develop new techniques to extract clearer information from noisy astronomical images. Cassini's final Saturn images were perfect test subjects, rich in detail, but containing atmospheric interference and transmission limitations that obscured finer features. The lab developed a quantum AI specifically designed to detect subvisual patterns in astronomical imaging, patterns too subtle for human perception or traditional computing. The system could analyze not just pixel brightness or color, but quantum-level information embedded within the digital file, including subtle correlations across multiple images taken at different times. When they fed Cassini's final images into the system, and they expected enhanced versions of familiar scenes, clearer cloud bands, more detailed ring structures, better defined atmospheric features. What they got instead sent ripples of shock through the lab. The AI didn't just clean up the images, it revealed something entirely new within them. Hidden across multiple frames was a consistent pattern, a structured form that appeared repeatedly but in slightly different configurations, as if it were moving or changing. The pattern wasn't random noise or a camera malfunction. It had symmetry. It had consistency. And most disturbingly, it seemed to follow mathematical rules. At first, the researchers suspected a problem with their AI. Maybe it was creating patterns where none existed, a form of algorithmic pareidolia. They ran diagnostic tests, checked their code, and even built in randomizing elements to prevent false pattern recognition. But each time, the AI found the same thing. Something structured was hidden in Cassini's final images, something that shouldn't be there according to our understanding of natural phenomena. The pattern appeared across separate image files taken at different times and from varying camera angles. It persisted when they applied different analytical techniques. It remained consistent when they removed known spacecraft vibration patterns and transmission artifacts. Whatever this was, it wasn't a glitch or an error. It was real, and it had been captured by Cassini's cameras in its final hours. As one researcher put it in an internal memo, either we've discovered an entirely unknown atmospheric phenomenon on Saturn that defies current physics, or something was there watching Cassini as it made its final approach. Patterns emerged from the static. As the research team dug deeper, the patterns revealed by the quantum AI became increasingly complex, and to many observers, increasingly unsettling. What had initially appeared as subtle geometric anomalies evolved into something far more structured when analyzed across multiple images and timeframes. The AI began extracting numerical sequences hidden within the pixel arrangements. These weren't random distributions. They included prime number sequences, Fibonacci spirals, and proportions matching the golden ratio. In one particularly striking example, a pattern in Saturn's cloud formations precisely mirrored the mathematical constant pi to over a dozen decimal places when their spatial relationships were mapped. These were the exact types of mathematical concepts that scientists have long theorized would form the basis of any attempt at interstellar communication. Simple math transcends language barriers. It's universal. When humanity sent out the Voyager Golden Records in the 1970s, we included basic mathematical concepts to demonstrate our intelligence. Now, it seemed something was using the same approach to communicate back. The research team expanded their analysis. They applied the AI to every available image from Cassini's final weeks, tracking how these patterns evolved over time. What emerged was even more remarkable. The patterns appeared to respond to Cassini's approach. As the spacecraft moved closer to its final plunge, the mathematical signals became more defined, more complex, and more frequent. In images from 3 days before impact, the patterns were subtle, almost invisible. In the penultimate day images, they became more structured. And in the final hours, just before Cassini's destruction, they reached their peak complexity, almost as if something was making a final attempt at contact before the spacecraft was gone forever. One researcher noted that the patterns didn't behave like natural phenomena. They moved against prevailing atmospheric currents. They maintained their mathematical properties despite passing through turbulent storm systems. They seemed to exist both within and somehow separate from Saturn's atmosphere, like a projection or a deliberate manipulation of the visible spectrum. The team brought in outside experts, mathematicians, physicists, even cryptographers to examine what they'd found. The consensus was disturbing. These patterns showed hallmarks of intentional design. Whatever created them understood advanced mathematics and was embedding that knowledge into visible formations within Saturn's atmosphere. The implications were enormous. If these patterns were artificial, created by some form of intelligence, then something had been there when Cassini made its final approach. Something had been watching. And perhaps most significantly, something had been trying to communicate the mathematical message. The deeper the researchers dug into the mathematical properties of the patterns, the more astounding their findings became. What had started as geometric curiosities had evolved into something that looked increasingly like a comprehensive system of mathematical communication. The patterns contained embedded sequences that corresponded to prime numbers. Not just simple ones like 2, 3, 5, and 7, but complex primes extending into the thousands. When mapped spatially, they created perfect Fibonacci spirals, a mathematical sequence found throughout nature, but never with such precision in chaotic systems like planetary atmospheres. Other sequences matched the golden ratio, pi, and even Euler's number, mathematical constants that are fundamental to describing physical reality. These weren't approximations. They were exact to dozens of decimal places. The statistical probability of such patterns occurring naturally was effectively zero. Most intriguing were the relationships between these patterns. They didn't just exist as isolated mathematical curiosities. They interacted with each other, building upon previous patterns and developing into increasingly complex structures, almost like a language evolving in real time. The team brought in linguistic analysis AI systems to look for syntax or grammar-like structures within the mathematical sequences. What they found suggested these weren't just demonstrations of mathematical knowledge, but potentially expressions with semantic content. In other words, not just "hello, we understand math," but actual information being conveyed through mathematical relationships. One particular sequence that appeared repeatedly across multiple images seemed to describe a three-dimensional structure with precise coordinates. When rendered as a 3D model, it created a geometric form that matched no known natural structure, but had perfect internal mathematical consistency. Some team members began referring to it as the key or the address, though what it might unlock or point to remained unclear. Perhaps most significant was that these patterns appeared to respond to Cassini itself as the spacecraft changed position or adjusted its instruments. Subsequent images showed patterns that seemed to acknowledge or react to these changes, like a conversation where one party responds to the actions of another. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just a static message left for someone to find. It appeared to be an active attempt at communication triggered by Cassini's presence and final approach. As something had not only recognized the spacecraft as an artificial object, but had attempted to establish mathematical communication with it or through it back to Earth. The research team faced a profound question. If these patterns were indeed a form of intelligence trying to communicate, what exactly was it trying to say? And why had it chosen Saturn's atmosphere as its canvas, Saturn's perfect hiding place? As the revelations about the patterns in Cassini's images spread through the small circle of scientists cleared to access the findings, attention turned to a fundamental question. Why Saturn? What made this particular planet the apparent home, or at least the communication medium for whatever intelligence had left these mathematical messages? Saturn has always been one of the solar system's most enigmatic planets. It emits significantly more heat than it receives from the Sun, about 2.3 times more, suggesting something generates energy within the planet itself. While most planets exhibit this to some degree, Saturn's energy surplus has never been fully explained by conventional scientific models. The planet's magnetic field is another anomaly. Unlike Earth's magnetic field, which roughly aligns with its rotational axis, Saturn's magnetic field is perfectly aligned with its rotation. A symmetry so precise it has puzzled planetary scientists for decades. Such perfect alignment doesn't occur naturally according to our understanding of planetary magnetic field generation. Then there are the rings, a feature so striking that it defines Saturn in the public imagination. While other gas giants have ring systems, none compare to the complexity, density, and beauty of Saturn's. Within these rings are unexplained structures, ripples, gaps, and braided patterns that don't fully match our computer models of how ring particles should behave. The research team discovered something even more compelling. The mathematical patterns identified by the AI aligned perfectly with specific regions of Saturn's magnetic field anomalies. The patterns appeared most prominently at precise latitudes corresponding to unexplained fluctuations in the planet's magnetosphere, areas where our instruments had always struggled to get clear readings. It was as if whatever created these patterns had intimate knowledge of Saturn's unique properties, and had specifically chosen locations where human instruments would be most likely to experience interference or data corruption. And they placed their message in the planet's blind spots, areas where we might attribute strange readings to instrument error rather than intelligent design. Saturn's atmosphere itself provided another perfect concealment factor. Its thick clouds of ammonia and water vapor create a constantly shifting visual landscape where patterns can form and dissolve rapidly. Any structured pattern would be assumed to be a natural atmospheric phenomenon unless specifically analyzed for mathematical consistency across multiple images. Exactly the kind of analysis that wasn't possible until quantum AI came along. The research team began to see Saturn not just as a message board, but as a deliberate choice. Perhaps the perfect hiding place for an intelligence that wanted to remain hidden until we developed the technological sophistication to truly see what was there. If you wanted to leave a message that would only be discovered once a civilization reached a certain technological threshold, embedding it in Saturn's most anomalous features would be an effective strategy. This realization led to an unsettling question. How long had this presence been there? Had it witnessed our earlier flybys of Saturn, Pioneer 11 in 1979, Voyager 1 and 2 in the early 1980s? Had it been waiting for decades, or perhaps much longer, for humanity to send a spacecraft capable of recording its message with sufficient fidelity? The missing frame. Among all the puzzling discoveries made by the research team, just perhaps none was more troubling than the mystery of the missing 12th frame. According to Cassini's mission logs, the spacecraft was programmed to capture a rapid-fire sequence of 12 images during its final descent into Saturn's atmosphere. These would be the last views ever recorded before the hostile environment crushed and vaporized the probe. The researchers had analyzed 11 of these images extensively. They contained some of the clearest examples of the mathematical patterns, but when they attempted to access the 12th image, the very last one Cassini would ever take, they encountered something strange. The mission logs confirmed that all 12 images had been successfully transmitted back to Earth before Cassini's signal was lost forever. The data packets for all 12 were recorded in NASA's Deep Space Network receiving station. Yet when they examined the archived files, only 11 images had been properly decoded and stored. The 12th appeared in the system only as corrupted data, unreadable, scrambled beyond recognition, as if it had been encrypted using a completely unknown method. This wasn't a simple case of data corruption during transmission. The quantum AI team confirmed that the data packet itself was intact. It had arrived complete from Saturn. The problem was that it couldn't be translated into a viewable image using any known decoding protocol. It was as if the image itself had been deliberately scrambled at its source before transmission. The timing couldn't be coincidental. The 11th image showed the mathematical patterns at their most complex and defined state yet. Logic suggested the 12th would contain an even clearer demonstration, or perhaps the culmination of whatever message was being conveyed, and this was precisely the image that couldn't be decoded. The team tried everything. They applied every known image decoding algorithm. They attempted to reconstruct the image using partial data. They even designed specialized quantum algorithms specifically to tackle this type of corruption. Nothing worked. The 12th image remained stubbornly unreadable. Some researchers proposed an unsettling theory. What if the final image hadn't been corrupted at all? What if it had been deliberately encoded using a mathematical system beyond our current understanding? A sort of test or puzzle. Perhaps it was designed to be unlocked only when we reached a specific level of technological advancement or mathematical insight. Others suggested something even more disturbing. What if the 12th image contained something so clear, so unmistakable that it couldn't be dismissed as a natural phenomenon? What if it showed something that would remove all doubt about the existence of an intelligent presence in Saturn's atmosphere? And what if that image had been deliberately made unreadable until humanity was ready to face such a revelation? Whatever the truth, the missing 12th frame represented both the most tantalizing clue and the most frustrating dead end in the entire investigation. It was the final piece of a puzzle that already challenged our understanding of the solar system and possibly our place within it. Scientific community divided. News of the discovery spread through scientific circles like wildfire, though carefully controlled to prevent premature public disclosure. And the reaction from the broader scientific community was intense and deeply divided. For every researcher who saw compelling evidence of non-human intelligence, another saw overinterpretation of natural phenomena or flaws in the AI methodology. Leading astrophysicists couldn't ignore the mathematical precision of the patterns. The statistical probability of such structured mathematical sequences appearing naturally in Saturn's atmosphere was vanishingly small. Several noted that the prime number sequences and geometric ratios matched exactly what SETI researchers had long suggested might form the basis of interstellar communication attempts. Planetary scientists specializing in Saturn pointed out that some of the patterns appeared in regions of the atmosphere where no known physical process could create such structures. The movements of these patterns often contradicted known wind patterns and atmospheric currents on Saturn. Whatever was creating these geometries seemed to operate independently of the planet's natural physics. But skeptics raised important counterpoints. Some AI experts questioned whether the quantum algorithms might be creating patterns where none existed. A form of digital pareidolia where the AI was essentially hallucinating meaning in random noise. They pointed out that the human desire to find patterns, especially intelligent ones, could be influencing how researchers interpreted the AI's outputs. Astronomers specializing in atmospheric phenomena suggested that unknown electrochemical processes in Saturn's unique atmosphere might create structures that only appeared artificial. The mathematical nature of these patterns, they argued, might reflect fundamental physics rather than intelligent design. The debate became increasingly heated in private scientific forums. Careers and reputations hung in the balance. Supporting the intelligence hypothesis meant risking association with fringe theories and potential ridicule. Yet dismissing the evidence entirely meant possibly ignoring one of the most significant discoveries in human history. Several prominent scientists found themselves caught in the middle. They acknowledged the anomalous nature of the patterns while remaining cautious about attributing them to non-human intelligence. They called for more data, more analysis, and more independent verification before reaching definitive conclusions. Adding to the controversy was the missing 12th frame. Some researchers became convinced that the inability to decode this final image wasn't a technical issue, but deliberate encryption, further evidence of intelligence. Others saw it as the most likely place to find a natural explanation for the seemingly unnatural patterns in the other images. The situation grew even more complex when a small group of researchers claimed to find similar mathematical structures in archived images from previous Saturn missions, including Voyager flybys from the early 1980s. If true, this would suggest whatever created these patterns had been present in Saturn's atmosphere for at least 4 decades, and had gone completely unnoticed until now. As scientific papers were drafted, peer-reviewed, and sometimes rejected due to the controversial nature of the claims, the community remained sharply divided. What everyone could agree on, however, was that the Cassini images contained something unprecedented, something that defied easy explanation and demanded further investigation. The unexpected silence. Just as the scientific debate was reaching its peak intensity, something strange happened. Almost overnight, discussion of the Cassini patterns virtually disappeared from scientific circles. The quantum AI research lab that had made the initial discovery went silent. Their website, which had previously featured updates about their analytical methods, though not the specific findings, was replaced with a generic research portal describing unrelated projects. Scientists who had been vocal about the patterns in private forums suddenly stopped responding to emails on the subject, and conference presentations on the anomalies were canceled without explanation. Research papers that had been submitted to journals were withdrawn by their authors. This sudden silence sparked concerns among those who had been following the developments. What had happened? Why had such a potentially groundbreaking discovery been abruptly abandoned or suppressed? Rumors began circulating through scientific backchannels. Some researchers claimed their funding had been unexpectedly cut after pursuing the Saturn patterns too aggressively. Others reported receiving strongly worded messages from supervisors or government officials, advising them to focus on more productive research directions. A few even suggested they had been asked to sign non-disclosure agreements regarding their work on the Cassini images. Journalists attempting to investigate the story hit similar walls of silence. Freedom of Information Act requests regarding the Cassini mission's final images received heavily redacted responses or were denied on technicalities. NASA representatives would only state that all Cassini data was available through official archives. Yet, attempts to access the specific images in question often resulted in server errors or incomplete downloads. The quantum AI lab researchers themselves seemed to have moved on to entirely different projects. When pressed by colleagues, they would only say their work on the Cassini images had reached a natural conclusion and refused to elaborate further. Their quantum AI system, which had decoded the patterns, was reportedly repurposed for pharmaceutical research. Its original algorithms apparently overwritten. This pattern of silence and redirection only fueled speculation. If the patterns had merely been misinterpreted natural phenomena or AI errors, why not publish those findings? Why not demonstrate the flaws in the analysis and put the matter to rest? The absence of a clear scientific refutation made the silence all the more suspicious. Some scientists began working in secret, using private computing resources to analyze copies of the Cassini images they had secured before access became difficult. They shared findings through encrypted channels away from institutional oversight. This underground research network continued to find evidence supporting the original discovery, mathematical patterns that defied natural explanation. The contrast was stark. What had begun as an exciting scientific debate conducted through proper channels had transformed into something that felt uncomfortably like a cover-up. Whether this represented legitimate scientific caution or something more concerning remained unclear, but the message sent by the silence was unmistakable. Something about these findings made people in positions of authority extremely uncomfortable. Today, years after the initial discovery, the mystery of what Cassini saw in its final moments remains unresolved. The images still exist in various archives and private collections, though accessing the complete original dataset has become increasingly difficult. The quantum AI analysis that first revealed the patterns has not been fully replicated. Though several independent researchers claim to have verified aspects of the original findings, the question remains open. Did Cassini, in its final plunge, capture evidence of non-human intelligence hiding within the clouds of Saturn? Or did our own intelligence, amplified through quantum AI, see patterns where none truly existed? As new missions prepare to return to the ringed planet, we may soon have our answer. Thanks for watching another episode. While you are still here, make sure to click the video on your screen for more quality content.